actually believe that psychology does play a role in criminal actions. And I'll talk about the criminal intent and the very special psychology of this BPS, the Battered Person Syndrome. But first to some rebuttal, and I'll go mostly into it in my substantive, but still. Premeditated and all the analysis that obviously there is free choice. I'll go to it in my psychology, and my analyzing the psychology of this specific syndrome, but he or she, the woman or the child, most of the time, are isolated. They feel that if they try, they have nowhere to run to, and if they try, he'll get them and kill them or harm them to a very severe manner. We say that this is a very special psychological state, and they can't see a way out. They are afraid. They are upset. I'll get to it again in my substantive. But we say that history cannot determine our actions and so on. We will address it and show you that they perceive it as self-defense. And self-defense, sometimes you have a choice whether to try to run away or hold your grounds, fight or flight situation. But still we accept that if you choose to fight in self-defense cases, this is a legitimate course of action, and we'll prove you that they perceive it as self-defense, and perception is the most important thing. And this is a medically defined situation. It's not arbitrary. There are criteria. I know they like this word, and therefore it will hold. And accountability, again, criminal intent is the main source of accountability, which brings me to my first point, the criminal intent. We said that psychological aspect of committing a crime is the most important thing. Now let's analyze a case of, you have a given circumstances in which a man was hit by a car. Now let's look at 6 different circumstances, 6 different cases that can arise from such a thing. First of all, maybe the man jumped to the road committing suicide. In that case, there is no liability. Or the driver had a heart attack or so on. Maybe it was a mechanical breakdown with limited liability. Maybe it was negligible driving or DUI, and maybe he hit him intentionally. The criminal aspect, you can't understand the case without the psychological aspect of it, and you are guilty only with this criminal intent. This was a build-up basically to the big point, which is the psychology of BPS. Firstly, we'll say this is medically defined. It has very strict definition. Not everyone can use it. And it has very specific criteria only reviewed by a psychologist. And we say this is a process. It doesn't happen all of a sudden a person decides to murder someone else. Usually a weakened individual, a wife or a child. And we say this process goes like this. Firstly, you have isolation. Isolation meaning that he doesn't let his woman see other people. She's not aware of her outside options. Then we say usually it's submissive. Either submissive to the wife, submissive to the attacker, that is. Either to the wife is submissive to, or a child. Again, there is a power play here, and it's completely to the advantage of the attacker. Then we say they don't believe he or she can get outside help. They feel that they cannot run away. Sometimes they stay because they don't know any other things. He apologizes afterwards, or she won't leave him before because she wants to protect the kids. So there is isolation. Then we said there is systematic abuse. Systematic abuse means beating, physical harm, humiliation and isolation, locking him in the closet, for instance. Psychological harm, again and again and again. I'll take closing in a second. This causes distress, and this distress is built up. There is a build-up of distress. Years and years of abuse, time and time again. Again with isolation, they can't see a way out. Many times they try to address someone from the outside and were thrown back into this situation, so they don't trust other people. Go.
So why wouldn't you just improve the external services who deal with domestic disputes as opposed to creating an excuse for murder?
Again, we think it's a good idea. It won't solve anything. And if it comes to the very extreme, rare cases in which such a situation does occur, we think this is a legitimate course of defense by this wife or by this child who was for years abused. Now, we say that this distress, this buildup of distress, years and years of isolation, beating and humiliation, ultimately leads to a breaking point, because most people have a psychological breaking point. And they have a perception of mortal danger which cannot take it anymore. And this mortal danger, they believe, can happen in every single minute. He can snap and kill me every single minute, and I can't run away. Therefore, this is not driven by revenge. This is driven by self-preservation, but what they see as a threat to themselves, sometimes to the threat to those who are closest to them. For instance, a wife defending not only herself, but also her children.
On this point,
really quickly,
we are not talking about somebody who breaks at that point. Why should she be excused from murdering him 10 years after being released?
She can't tackle him heads on because of the power play involved. She only do it when he's asleep or when she gets a weapon and then she commits a crime in order to save herself. They think they cannot run away, they think next time he will kill her, and if she is cornered to that point, then she commits a crime. And perception is everything. We accept self-defense even if the perception was not based on real threat. Now this is a crucial point. Even if he wouldn't have killed her, if she thought he would, then this is legitimate course of defense. And therefore, it is extremely relevant in defense in the court. And we say that in such a case, she will not be found guilty of murder, but she will send to a hospital for her mental state. And only when after she recuperates from her years of trauma can she rehabilitate and be brought back to society. Because she's not a threat to society, she dismantled a threat to her own life, what she perceived as a mortal danger after years of abuse systematically, both physically and psychologically. For all these reasons, because the criminal intent is based on psychology, and because of the very specific, medically classified perception and psychology of BPS, we think this is very relevant in the court system and she should be acquitted and sent to treatment and not to jail. I call you to oppose.